Hi, everyone. I'm Betsy Ross, and we are so fortunate right now to be in the middle of college football bowl season. And, I think you can say that there are college football fans, there are rabid college football fans, and then there are Michigan fans. And I want to introduce you to two of my friends who probably fit that latter category, Julie Powell and Vicky Musky, and they are going to every single Michigan football game, home and away, including right now in the postseason. Vicky, Julie, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, we're so happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
I think it's probably every fan's dream to be able to do that, to go to every single game that your team plays. And, take me back to the very beginning. Who came up with this idea? Said, hey, wouldn't this be fun? Who thought of that?
I am a Michigan alumni, so I definitely fall into the rabid, I like to say super fan category. I've been a fan my whole life. I've been attending games most of my adult life. But what started out as kind of like, hey, let's visit one stadium a year, get to know all the schools in the Big Ten. This year, there was some timing involved. One was that I was going to be retiring from my full-time, sort of takes a lot of my time job. And then secondly, we are in a good, as far as Michigan football is concerned, we're happy with the way our program has gone in the last couple of years from a long slide of not doing very well. So timing wise, it seemed like the right time to do it. But, and so I would say it was about a year ago that the idea was formulated. And then, we started with what is not always glamorous, but we started with the spring game, which is just a scrimmage. Most colleges do it. Yeah. In April. It was horrible weather. It was raining and freezing. But we said, you know what? That's the beginning. So
the Big Ten, a lot of it is drivable. So that's, one good thing. You can drive to these games. There's a handful that you have to fly, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I mean, Vicky, you work full time. So how do you fit that into your schedule, being able to get to all these games?
It was a little tricky, but obviously vacation and timing. I didn't take a full week vacation this year, so I kind of pieced it together. And usually are Fridays, and we're usually back on Sundays. So some of the shorter trips. I mean, there was only 4 away games that we actually had to go far for. That were, we flew to three places. So I just had to obviously work with my schedule, work with my vacation, and absolutely I wanted to be part of it. I thought it was a cool, fun. I'm a huge fan of Michigan, always have been, even though I went to Western Michigan, but it has been a cool ride. So I was excited to be part of it.
So let's talk a little bit about logistics before we get into the whole fandom. So you need tickets to all these places, and Big Ten tickets are a hot ticket. Michigan tickets are a hot ticket. How did you finagle the ticket part? I guess, Julie, because you're an alum, that kind of gives you a little bit of an insight.
Well, we'll share this answer because I did know that we could reasonably get tickets to every home game through the Alumni Association. They post them as the games come up, and I knew that we could get them, but we were both really cognizant of the fact that the Ohio State game is a giant draw and would be a costly ticket. Mm-hmm. So we were worried kind of all along, not that we couldn't get a ticket, but how much would we have to pay for it? So our desire to get season tickets to the home games was a big one. And why don't you take over this part?
Yeah. And we knew that, obviously the Ohio State ticket was the one we were worried about. And I had a friend that had sold us a whole set of the season tickets. The seats weren't very good. They're kind of high, but it was still a ticket into it included the Ohio State tickets. So we actually bought a whole season packet, 2 season tickets for this year. So we got pretty lucky to be able to do that, which included the Ohio State game.
Yeah. And then I took charge of the away tickets. And to be honest, never having to have to do this as much as I did this year, I wasn't sure how to go about it. But I went to the opposing team's website, athletic website, and I was able to buy tickets to 3 of the 4 games right off the website. And we actually got pretty decent seats and a nice price. Like that worked really smooth. The most challenging one, quite honestly, was Michigan State. Which if we know how the season went for them, it was a horrible season for them. And, but back when I was buying a ticket, they were the only tickets that you couldn't buy. They kept saying you had to wait almost until the start of the season. So I had this date on my calendar, called them on this day. It's what they told me to do. And I had worked with this girl a couple times. Well, when it came right down to it, she said, you got to log in at midnight. We released the tickets at midnight on this certain date. So I stayed up. And at 12:01, I was logged in and nothing was available. Nothing was available. And she had pre-warned me that sometimes tickets are sold out ahead of that date. And so there might not be anything available. Well, there wasn't. So I thought, all right, well, I stayed up late for nothing, but whatever. I'll have to figure out another way. Well, then turns out she called me the next morning. And because I talked to her a few times, I had her number. I kind of recognized it right away when it rang. And she said, oops, the system screwed up last night and it didn't go live like it was supposed to. And I knew you were the first person I had to call back because you deserve to have tickets for calling me. And I mean, it was just like this blessing. I had kind of been, I'd been nice to her all along and had a nice relationship with her. And so she said, I'm going to give you 4 tickets instead of 2. You can bring some friends. I'm going to give you some good seats. So that was probably the hardest one to get.
Right. Yeah. The closest.
And it pays to be nice. See?
Yeah.
So, so you have the logistics, you figure out how you're going to get there. Let's talk just about the fandom. Because I'm sure that when you were on the road, you ran into a lot of Michigan fans. Did you start running into the same fans over and over again?
I will say that Michigan travels really well and always has. So we saw lots of Michigan fans at every game, and that was cool. Now, we didn't necessarily know any of them. We would be friendly with people we were sitting by. We met some cool people along the way. We have one particular guy that's been tailgating with us for years, and we know him, and we usually knew where he was at. But other than that, we did not have specific people to kind of go to in each spot. Incident, like we were in Maryland, and that's kind of a city atmosphere, and we had to jump on like the city transportation, kind of like a subway to get, and every single stop we made from where we started to the stadium, more and more Michigan fans get on. We didn't see any Maryland State fans get on. It was all Michigan. More Michigan, more Michigan, more Michigan. By the time we got there, that whole thing was Michigan.
Yeah. I was just going to say too, it's amazing when you wake up from my perspective and you go down to the hotel lobby and you have breakfast, and then it just now you see the floods of Michigan fans that have arrived throughout the previous day and spent the night, and you're down there having, breakfast with, a bunch of Michigan fans. So it was pretty cool.
So let's talk about the stadiums and the other teams and their fans. Other than obviously the big house, what was your favorite stadium to visit? Vicky, I'll start with you.
Yeah, mine's Nebraska. Something about Nebraska. Obviously, I'm a big NFL fan too, and going to several Bengal games. But I enjoyed the Nebraska. There's 95,000 people there. It kind of had that NFL feel that I liked. The fans were very, very nice before the game started until they got into the stadium. But they were pretty. They got a little nasty. But we Michigan put a pretty big score up on them quickly, and then they kind of quieted it down. But they were there. That was cool. So I would say Nebraska was my favorite. I think people would probably say Penn State, but I had so much hype about Penn State, and everybody said it was so great that I thought it was awesome, but it wasn't. Nebraska was my favorite place.
And I'm going to be that person that says Penn State was my favorite. It was a cold day, so in some ways, that always matters. When we were in Nebraska, it was 95 degrees. We were in shorts. When we were at Penn State, it was 30 degrees, and we were in lots and lots of clothes. But we hooked up with a giant tailgate group there. That gentleman that I mentioned tailgates a lot. He had 37 people with him, and we were there for quite a bit. But Penn State is it's also very big. It's not as big as the big house, but it is big. And it's that Nittany Lion roar that kind of transcends the stadium. That is really cool. And they always do a whiteout, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
And we were treated fine at Penn State. I mean, that was a matchup at that time of 2 top 10 teams. And although Michigan came out the victor, it was a well played, well fought out game. And I think all the fans were great.
Let's go the opposite end. We talked about some of your favorite stops. What were some of the stops that maybe were not your favorites, maybe did not welcome Michigan fans with open arms?
You start.
Well, I'll start with Michigan State, right down the road, the hardest ticket to get, raining, just walking to the game, the fans, the setup, it just was that kind of dreary kind of day. And I feel the fans they didn't really say anything, but they weren't very hospitable to us. But I was a little it was just dreary. Even I Michigan State, and it doesn't surprise me. So that's what I would say. I'm not sure.
I'm going to agree with that too. I guess, the whole experience for us is the tailgate, the getting there, the game, the fans, all of it, and the outcome of the game, all of it. And at Michigan State, although we beat them, they never scored a point, and it's been a down season for them. That wasn't really the reason that I didn't care for them. It is the way they have tailgating set up is funny. The way that they park cars is goofy. Like, everything about it does not flow like it does in so many of the other stadiums. And so it's to me, a funky fan experience.
Yeah.
I don't have a great feel there. And again, it was the kind of game that, as a super fan, I love. We kicked their butt and beat them, and they didn't score a point. That usually means a lot to me, and I would love that. And I did love it that we won, but it's the rest of it too. It just doesn't feel like I would want it to feel.
As I mentioned, you have gone through the season, been to the Big Ten championship, and you got your tickets to the Rose Bowl before you knew you were going to the Rose Bowl.
Yes.
Roll the dice there.
Yeah.
You do, you have to, because, at that point, of course, every win, and as the season moves along, is when you feel like you might be getting closer to that point. But you also don't know, the way that this playoff currently works with the 4 teams is even if you make it into the 4, which we were pretty assured of, even, as it got later and later into the season, you don't know. At this point, we could have also gone to Louisiana, to the Sugar Bowl. And so, how do you know which? And should we buy tickets for both? And, that was kind of our thing. Now, for me, I've wanted to go to the Rose Bowl for as long as I can remember. Honestly, probably 30 plus years, and I have yet to go. And that was my dream, to go to there. So we bought those tickets, but even though Vicky said, maybe we should get Sugar Bowl tickets, I'm like, nope, let's just roll the dice.
Yeah.
And knowing that, again, as a Michigan alumni and being a lifetime member of the association, we were going to get the option to go wherever it was and to buy into that program. So we were never not going to be able to have tickets. But what kind of tickets and all of that. So we did decide to do the Rose Bowl, and Vicky is expert at kind of figuring all that out. So
yeah,
you knew when to look at the Rose Bowl site, or
right. So I just knew that it's risk and reward. That's how kind of got to look at it. You got to take, this whole trip do you buy the ticket early? Do you not buy it? So we feel, and we kept our Rose Bowl tickets, even though we bought the alumni package for the whole trip. So we're excited.
If you're giving advice to someone who's watching this, listening to this, and saying, man, I want to do that next year, what kind of advice would you give them? Would you have them hook up with the Alumni Association? What kind of advice would you give them? Not just for the tickets, but for the whole experience. Vicky, let's start with you.
Yeah. My thing would be, obviously start early. If I had to rank them, I would get hotels, work on your hotels and that type of logistic first, and then, work towards your tickets. And then work towards how you're going to get there third. So that's kind of what I would say, is early, look at the schedule. It might not be next year. It might be the following year, but when we looked at the schedule, it was a perfect time. 3 flights, 2 drivables. So that was kind of what I looked at, and making sure, that it was a pretty simple schedule and simple to get there. So.
Yeah. And I'll echo the hotel part for sure, because you can cancel a reservation, so getting them early is, and I have honor points for Hilton. So I go for all those hotels, and I'm going to accumulate points and get a special rate no matter what, because of that. But you do that so far ahead, and the prices are fairly reasonable. Yes. It's, again, when you wait and it gets near game day, all of a sudden hotels are sold out, or their price is so high. So hotels for sure, because that you can get out of. But I would also echo, I actually kept a spreadsheet. I still have it. And I logged every single thing that we did, all of the confirmation numbers, et cetera. And I did it almost for a memory and for something to look back at and say, when we went there, we actually, because as we can say now, as being done with the season, there isn't a hotel that we didn't like. Like, we ended up in good places. And if we hadn't, I would have wanted to note that on the, the thing too, that I wouldn't stay there again, kind of a thing. But we liked where we were. We liked, we always try to go to local restaurants and try to engage in local things. So we have some of that jotted down, and then we kept all of our prices jotted down. So we just really can look and go, okay, this is how much this trip really did cost from start to finish. This is how much the regular season cost, and this is how much the postseason cost, and then all of the logistics. And so if we had to repeat this or do something like this again, I think we were in a really good spot to know how to start over and make another one of these if we chose to. And that's what I'd recommend to someone else too.
Right. Yeah. Keep those records, keep the memories down so you can look back at it. So speaking of memories, what is your best memory of this whole experience? And of course, I'm sure, you're thinking that the best memory is yet to come down the road, but just looking back at what you have seen and what you have done so far, what's your best memory so far, Julie?
Hands down, beating Ohio State on the last on the last
Well, and
game.
that was a game. That was a great game.
That was a hell of a
That's it.
game.
It's it right there. It was absolutely everything in the game was, matched up to be. We've had such a record against them for so long, but we've turned it around the last couple of years to do it again for a third time at home, beating them really at the very end. I mean, we were always ahead, but not by a lot, and it could always change. And everything about that game, it was the pulse in the air, the vibe around all of it from start to finish was electric. It was amazing.
Mine would be Nebraska. And that's again, it was actually my birthday weekend, and I got to invite a couple of my good friends, and I like Nebraska. It's got a cool kind of entertainment district, so we really had a great time and great memories. Stayed an extra day there, and then we also went to the game, and it was nice and warm, and we actually won. Michigan won by a lot, and I just liked it there. I just love the feel of Nebraska. I love being there with my friends, and it was a cool way to celebrate my birthday.
This has been, let's say, an unusual year for Michigan football. It has been one of trials and tribulations, and and I'm sure that for a fan perspective, it's a little unsettling because it seems as if everything is fine and then it's not, and all of a sudden you had your head coach and now you don't have a head coach. As fans, just as fans looking back at it, what kind of season has this been for you? Has it been a challenging season for fans as well? Just wondering what's going to happen next, what shoe is going to fall now, what is going to happen down the road. What's it been like for a fan?
It's been, when all of those things started coming out about the sign stealing, it was like those things hurt, just sit in your gut and just make it like, no. And the reason that I can say that, and Vicky may have a different answer, but it's like, we didn't need to cheat. We're good. We're good. And I believed in our team's abilities and the leadership on our team. And really, frankly, one of the reasons this has been a great year for Michigan, aside from these taints along the way, is that it's a fairly veteran group of kids that are out there on the field, from the quarterback to others. And I think that they handle this with more poise and than I think a lot of teams would be able to do. If the team was primarily young, I'm not sure they bounce back so well from having a coach miss 6 out of 12 games. I mean, he missed 6 out of 12 games, our head coach. That's a lot. And just the noise, that clouds the program didn't seem to get to the kids' level from what we can tell as a fan. But as fans, when we're tailgating, when we're talking to people, especially other fans that are as big as we are, we're sickened by it in some ways. We're also, we're not in disbelief that some things happen, but we're just more, don't want any, and you know, this is probably that teacher in me too, but like, I don't want anything to hurt the kids. The kids have worked hard
Yeah.
and they are where they're at because they are good and they deserve to be there. So I don't want these outside
Mhm.
things to hurt the kids is
Was it worth it? Was it worth the time? Was it worth the money? Was it worth everything?
hands down. Yes.
Yes.
I would do it 100 times over. And even though it's been costly financially in some ways, I'd spend it again. You know, I haven't once said, oh, that ticket's kind of high. I don't know about that. I haven't once felt that way. I would absolutely do it again.
Yeah, and me too. I mean, it was enjoyable. It was you met so many great people. You're all friends. You guys and gals all want the same goal. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I'd have to borderline almost the away games were more enjoyable because you're just meeting new people and you didn't really have any, time bound to do anything all the time. You just went and spent your time with people that had the same goals as you. So I think it was a cool trip. Everybody that we tell that we've done this is like, oh my God, how cool that is, and we told everybody. So it was a cool thing to do, I think.
It is a cool thing to do, and you're not done yet.
No,
No.
let's go.
You are not done yet. Vicky and Julie, thank you so much for talking about your experience. It is something that I think so many fans dream of. One of these days I'm going to do it. And, you two not only talked about it, but you did it and you scheduled it and you're on your way and you're still on the road and we will see what happens. But, it's been quite a ride. Even if it doesn't go to Houston, it's been quite a ride for you both. And it's got to be just something that's going to be one of these things that you will always, always remember.
Yes.
Yes, it will be.
Yes. Go blue from us.
That's right. Let's go.